Hello my friends and welcome back to Off the Underside podcast. Just got to do a little video today talking about all the weekend's action, all the big talking points, all the big topics. Just a wee quick video just to get into it because we will be doing our normal show on Tuesday as normal at 7 o'clock. So keep an eye on that. But it's been another interesting weekend. Only for the second time, all Celtic, Hearts and Rangers have all won their matches, which is very interesting and an unbelievable stat. I couldn't believe it the other week when I heard it was only once, but this weekend they've all done it. Starting off with Hearts, the leaders, they went down an early goal, but excellent. They came back. They showed a bit of resilience once again at Tynecastle, which they seem to be doing quite often at their home ground. They really do seem to shine there. Braga got a lovely goal to level things up. And then there was a controversial penalty decision, which I don't believe is really that controversial. I believe it is a penalty. I know people were saying it's not a high boot, It was clumsy for Stephen Welsh. I know Kibori's head is down low and stuff, but the fact is, Stephen Welsh kicked him in the head, and I just feel that, I get the argument of it's not a high foot, and, when the player's head's that low and stuff, but for me, I would expect my defender to be a wee bit more kind of savvy when it comes to things like that. I think it was a bit of a rash kind of kick out, and it was mistimed, and it was a penalty. When VAR looked at it and deemed it a penalty, which I do understand. Shanklin took it well, and they scored a third one, but they made it comfortable. But I think Motherwell did have chances. Mashuani, who I've not been able to pronounce his name properly all year, but he had one in the first half where he knocked it through, and he done all the hard work basically. He knocked it through, showed pace, showed power, and the defender kind of slid in. He even done a wee kind of fake strike at it, and he was through and goal, and he just kind of fluffed his lines towards the end there. But he's shown this year that he is a very, very good player, but if he's going to get to a higher level, he needs to be taking chances like that. But you've got to let him away with it because he's been fantastic all year. But that's just the difference in these kind of matches. If you take those kind of opportunities, Motherwell will go 2-0 up. It's a different game, isn't it? At Tynecastle and Hearts have maybe struggled a bit more to get back in the game, but they've done really well. Another major credit to Hearts, because their away form has been awful this season. Absolutely awful, especially over the last few months, where they've lost away to St Mirren, they've drew against Livingston, they've lost to Rangers, they've just not done well at all away from home. They lost to Kilmarnock, they've just not done well at all when it comes to being on the road and that, but their form at Tynecastle has been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. You've got to hand it to them, even if it is last minute gasp winners, like it was against Hibs and even Dundee the other week, where they get a kind of late goal, 10 minutes to go, whatever. You've got to hand it to Hearts. They have been very, very consistent at Tynecastle, and they deserve to be where they are, and they're still top of the league as it stands, because we go to the Celtic game, and I watched the highlights, wasn't impressed with the amount of chances Celtic really created, to be honest. I thought that there was no don't really remember many clear-cut chances where Celtic should have scored. They're just not creating enough, but luckily Celtic did get the goal. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain with a nice left-footed strike into the bottom corner, which is pretty rare for him, I believe. But that's another goal that he scored, another nice goal for Oxlade-Chamberlain. And there's people saying that he's terrible and he's another Aaron Ramsey and all that. No, he's actually had a good couple of games now. I don't feel that he was fit yet. He wasn't really properly fit and stuff, but he's been far from terrible. He's not been terrible. He scored that late goal in his debut against Livingston, and a couple of games he's come on and changed the game. I remember the game at Ibrox in the Cup semi-final, quarter-final, and he came on and he did really, really well. So Oxlade-Chamberlain's done okay for Celtic. Like I said, a crucial goal yesterday. Celtic won the match. Second half looked pretty awful. Really, really awful. Not enough chances created. No clinical enough whenever chances did come up, which is pretty concerning. When you're going for a league title, you should be trying to get and make statements, and that takes us to the Rangers game today. So Celtic ended up winning that game 1-0. Rangers game today. Well, what can I say? From a neutral point of view, it must have been really good. I'm not a neutral because I want Rangers to lose, but I mean, Falkirk would 2-0 up. The first goal, really nice play for Calvin Miller down the side, plays it in, the boy takes it away, tucks it away, and I think the Rangers' defence have got questions to ask there. He looked a bit sloppy and a wee bit kind of leggy in that one. And then the second goal was a phenomenal goal for Yates. Strike with his left foot into the bottom corner. I thought it was a really, really beautiful goal, to be honest, and kind of half volley. I thought it was an excellent goal to beat a goalkeeper like Butland for there with that accuracy. I thought, what a goal. And then every time Falkirk went forward, they looked a bit threatening in the first half. And I was thinking, right, it'd be nice if we got a third goal here, because I think Rangers were always capable of getting back in the game. And exactly what happened just before half time. They get the goal back. Falkirk players stand because they thought the ball was out of play, but it gets knocked in the end, and it makes it 2-1. And then they go 2-1 in at half time. Rangers came out in the second half, get a very early goal through Chormitty, and that was it. They didn't quite look back. They ended up getting a few goals. Falkirk did get a penalty, which I thought that it was a penalty. Tavernier was very rash in the challenge, but at the end of the day, Rangers ended up going on to score 6 goals, and it was 6-3 in the end. 6 goals away from home. I know that defensively there's going to be questions asked. Like I say, the first goal was pretty poor. Tavernier's rash decision was pretty poor on that, but I think overall you're going to be happy from a Rangers point of view that you're scoring goals, that you're taking your opportunities when they come along. And that's without guys like Naderi, who was scoring goals for Rangers, but he's now out of the team and stuff through injury. So I just think that Rangers are looking like the most likely team to go on and win the title, in my opinion. And I think that with the fixtures, I think that they have got the best route to it as well, if I'm being totally honest. I really do. I think that go to Tynecastle, they won that game at Tynecastle. I know they've still got to go to Tynecastle, got to go to Celtic Park, but you need to, everybody's got to play each other now, and you need to go to these places to win, to win titles and stuff. And I know Celtic are at home with these things, but I'm not really sure it even matters at this point, to be honest. Every game's a cup final. It could be a neutral ground. I don't think it really matters at all. It's going to be who's better on the pitch. And I just feel that Rangers are playing the best football. I think they're scoring the goals that they need. Celtic are not scoring goals. Hearts are grinding out results. And I just feel that in this position, if I'm being totally honest, I think Rangers are the most likely and the favourites to go on and win the title. But time will tell. Any theorem could still win it. I think Rangers showed resilience, by coming back today, which is a very big factor. And I want to talk a wee bit about something I heard on a Celtic podcast the other day. I'll name it. Not a big deal. I'm not slagging anybody off or whatever. It's just a talking point that I wanted to discuss, and it was on the Celtic Exchange, and they were talking about Celtic's mentality, and I've got to stand up for Celtic on this one. I'm not going to lie, I really do. I think that Celtic have shown all sorts of problems this season, right? They've shown that the players haven't been up to it a lot of the time. They've shown a real lack of quality, a real lack of leadership, a real lack of productivity, and all that kind of stuff. And you can blame that on having 3 different managers, one over 2 spells. You can blame all that and having no real consistency within the team. But one thing I will say about Celtic is this season, they have been resilient, and they have showed a really good mentality at times, in my opinion. I think they have. I mean, you look at the Kilmarnock game, 2-0 down at half time, come back and win the game 3-2. Brilliant day. When you're not playing well, they're dragging out results a lot of the time. You know what I mean? Like Oxlade-Chamberlain's last minute goal against Livingston, Dundee the other week, yesterday against St Mirren. Okay, it's not been the greatest performances, but Celtic are doing these. They're grinding out results. The game at Ibrox where it's 2-0 down at half time, and you're thinking, this is it. The league's over here. Celtic came out, they make a couple of changes, and they destroy Rangers in the second half. Then the cup quarter final, it's not the best of games, but Rangers couldn't score a goal. Celtic didn't score, and a penalty. Celtic won the match. They got the job done. You know what I mean? And even in Europe, there's a couple of batterings in there. The game against Roma was just horrendous. But yeah, Celtic in the second portion of the the Europa League, they did show some determination. You know what I mean? You go over to Bologna and get a terrific result. If it wasn't for Rio Hatate, Celtic would have won that game. They won the game against Feyenoord away, and then they won the last game. You know what I mean? And it's just in Germany. You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know. I just feel that Celtic have been. There's a lot to criticise Celtic for this season, a lot, and I've been one of the main critics. But when it comes to mentality and it comes to resilience and stuff like that, I think Celtic have got to be. I think they've got to be praised. I really do, and I think there's in a season where there's been very little to praise Celtic about. I think you've got to praise them on their mentality, because they have grinded out results when other managers would have failed. And you know, we had that massive period with Wilfred Nancy where we were just shocking. We had the period where Brendan Rodgers just wasn't interested, and the Celtic board were a disgrace, and there was all the out fighting, you know, the infighting, you know, at AGMs and stuff like that. And Celtic are still grinding out results to only be 3 points behind the leaders at this point after all the turmoil that's been going on and off the park. Is the Celtic have got to be, you know, they've got to be commended for that. Well done. You know what I mean? They're still in the title race, and the same goes for Rangers. To be honest, Rangers had all their problems at the start of the season, and to only be 1 point behind the leaders is just incredible at this point. But anyway, that's my thoughts on this weekend's action. Aberdeen, well done again to Aberdeen, who have grinded out a result. Stephen Robinson under a lot of pressure. Loads of people looking for him to fail because he decided to move on for St Mirren. I personally wish him all the best. I think he's decided to move up in the world like everybody else, if they had the opportunity, would do. That's no disrespect to St Mirren, you know, but it is a step up going to Aberdeen. That's why he done it, not just financially, but you know, football wise and stuff like that as well. So they won 2-0 against Hibs. Dundee clawed it back to 2 each to get a nice result away from home against Kilmarnock, and Dundee United won against Livingston. So another really exciting weekend. Livingston are down. It's going to be between Kilmarnock and St Mirren, in my opinion, who goes in the second spot to go down. And I think, if I'm standing here right now, I think Kilmarnock will end up in the playoffs, and they'll be up against Partick Thistle. I reckon it'll be Partick will get to the playoff final, and I think it'll be Kilmarnock against Partick. But that's just my opinion at the moment. Anything can happen, and I think that Rangers will probably go in and win the league. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm really interested to know what you are thinking at this point in the season. We've got a couple of weeks off now of Scottish Premiership action because it's the Cup semi-finals next weekend. So if you're a Rangers fan or a Hearts fan, you've got a couple of weeks to bite your nails and, you know, wait for the following matches to come up. But it's exciting times, guys. Remember to hit a subscribe button if you're not subscribed yet. It really is appreciated, and all the best.